Welcome back to this class. Let's consider types of compound based on their exposure to the atmosphere. That is, based on their behavior when they are exposed to the atmosphere. Compounds are classified into three based on their exposure to atmosphere. We have the efflorescent compounds, deliquescent compounds, and hygroscopic compounds. So let's start with the efflorescent compounds. Efflorescent compounds are compounds that give out their water of crystallization at normal temperature when they are exposed to the atmosphere. What we mean by this is that those compounds they lose their water of crystallization anytime they are exposed to the atmosphere. They are usually salts, and such salts that contain water of crystallization are called hydrated salts. So the hydrated salt can lose the whole of their water of crystallization. So when they lose the whole of their water of crystallization, they become anhydrous salt. On the other hand, some of them do not lose all of their water of crystallization, but they lose part of their water of crystallization. That means they will still contain some water content. Such compound, when they lose some part of their water of crystallization, the resulting new compound that contains small water of crystallization is known as lower hydrated salt. So lower hydrated salt still contain some water of crystallization. So in this sense, we can define a efflorescent compound in a more general way. So we are going to say efflorescent compounds are compounds that lose part or whole of their water of crystallization when they are exposed to the atmosphere. So now let's see some common examples of efflorescent compounds. These two are very common examples of efflorescent compound. The first one is sodium triisocarbonate 4 decahydrate, while the second one is sodium tetraisosulfate 6 decahydrate. The first one, which is sodium triisocarbonate 4 decahydrate, is also known as washing soda, while the second one, which is sodium tetraisosulfate 6 decahydrate, is also known as Glauber's salt. Now, the first one, which is washing soda, loses part of its water of crystallization, while the second one, which is Glauber's salt, loses all of its water of crystallization upon exposure to moisture. Let's see the reaction of this when they are exposed to the atmosphere. Now, when Na2CO3.10H2O is exposed to the atmosphere, it loses 9 water molecules and remains 1. Now, the original salt that has not lost any water of crystallization is called hydrated salt. And the new product, which has only 1 water molecule, is called lower hydrated salt. And the 9H2O, that's the lost water content, lost water of crystallization. Now, on the other hand, the second example, which is Glauber's salt, loses all of its own water of crystallization. Let's see its own reaction. So, this Glauber's salt loses all of the 10 water molecules that it contains. The original salt that has not lost anything is known as hydrated salt, while the new product that has no water at all is called anhydrous salt. And the 10H2O is the lost water of crystallization. And this is a short explanation on efflorescent compound. Thank you.